Thank you everybody for joining us today. It's my pleasure to introduce Chef Cindy East. She grew up surrounded by a mecca of diverse cultures, cuisines, and natural resources. She has traveled worldwide and engaged in cultural culinary research wherever she went. After retiring from the U.S. Air Force, she went to culinary school, training in everything from baking and pastry to world cuisine. Her couture kitchen offers courses in baking and pastry, dumpling and pasta making, outdoor grilling, and a variety of fascinating, seasonal, and delicious world cuisine classes. She offers several classes a year, as well as private lessons. So, again, thank you everybody for joining us today for our Mother's Day afternoon tea.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to my kitchen. How's everybody doing? Good to see some familiar faces there. And it's been a while since we've gotten together, hasn't it, Ashley?
Yes, it has.
Yeah, so it's almost Mother's Day, and I hope this class is just what you've been looking for or waiting for, because we're going to get down into the tea culture and learn so much about things that you probably never knew, hopefully. So I just have to say, starting off, this is one of my grandmother's teacups and a silver spoon. And there's just something about drinking from this beautiful cup that is so different from, say, what I usually use, this coffee cup. It's so different. The beautiful elegance of this little cup and the delicateness of it, it just kind of transforms this into a moment. Different. I mean, even when I have my tea, I usually either have coffee or tea, but I really do have switched back to tea now because it just makes me feel better, and the health benefits are significant with both green and black teas. And so I've started drinking tea again. And during the course of putting this today's class together for you, I have actually morphed into being a tea, more of a tea connoisseur. I am such a neophyte, when it comes to tea. I've drank tea pretty much since I was a teenager or even younger, but I had no idea. And I've had teas. Let me show you some of the places that I have had tea at. These are my experiences of having tea around the world. And you can see some of them are pretty fancy schmancy. All of them were fabulous and memorable. So today we're going to talk about how to bring your tea game up to speed so that when you do host, and I hope you do host some teas from your besties, your best pals, your family, whoever, and I hope that they will remember it. Just like I remember this, for example, this picture is at the Griffin Tea Room in Savannah, Georgia. It was a gorgeous, gorgeous apothecary that was very historic, and it had these drawers where they used to dispense, potions and drugs and, herbs and things like that. And they turned it into a beautiful tea room. So the Fairmont Empress was pretty great. High tea or afternoon tea. But in Britain, high tea was actually kind of the middle class dinner. So it would be like a more hearty meal versus afternoon tea. There's different kinds of teas, and we'll talk about that. But afternoon tea is the more formal affair with the etiquette and all of that. It seems like whenever I've gone to tea and whenever people that I know have gone to tea, they always come away from it saying it was lovely and it kind of restorative, both, physically and for your soul. And I know that in the morning, whenever I do have tea, sit down to have tea, it's kind of a ritual, and it's kind of when you make it something to share with friends, it becomes a ceremony or something of a celebration. Lots of different aspects of tea. And one of those being, how did people drink it around the world? And then we're going to look at things that I never even thought about. I always had these questions in my mind when I went to these fancy places, like, ooh, Assam, that sounds so exotic, or Ceylon, or Orange Pico, but I had no clue as to what that meant. So we're going to talk a little about that, as well as tea preparation, because there's definite things to make a good pot, have a good cup of tea. And there's definite things that you want to consider and kind of get into your regimen when you do prepare tea. Then we're going to talk about the Downton Abbey manners thing, or etiquette. And we're going to look at some of the faux pas and things that, I am definitely guilty of that I did not even know I was guilty of. But again, I've learned so much. I'm not as much of a grasshopper anymore. And then we're going to talk about table settings, tablescapes, and all the like tea. You could go crazy with all the paraphernalia you could collect to have an afternoon tea that's really fun, with all the little toys and things that go along with it. And then we're going to talk about our menu for tonight. So how many of you are going to be making some, actually, as far as the menu goes, this is the menu that I've put together because I have a live class, the first live class in person, where people come to my home, and I'll show you the table. But this is the first time since COVID that, I've actually had people coming back into my home to do classes. And as well as, I do still go out and do classes elsewhere. But so I'm getting ready to make some recipes, and and thank God some people are coming tomorrow to eat all these things, because I certainly don't consume all of these things after I have 5 Zoom classes this week. So that's a lot of tea sandwiches. So that's what we're going to look at. And so let's get into it and talk about, what kinds of tea are you familiar with around the world that people drink? A lot of times you drink tea and you don't exactly know what blend it is or what leaves it is made of. What I'm kind of getting at here is, have you heard of, say, Earl Grey? Where do you think Earl Grey started?
England.
Exactly. There's Earl. He's probably from England. Good guess. You're right. What other kinds of tea do people drink? You mentioned a green tea, right? It was at a Japanese or Asian, or it could have been something else like oolong. Where's oolong from, do you think?
China.
China is right. The Fujian province of China is where the most oolong, that's the highest quality, is grown up in the mountains at a very high elevation, but it's still moist and humid and hot. But it's high up at altitude-wise. And that is some of the most expensive oolong that you can buy. What else? Have you heard of Assam tea? I just mentioned it.
Uh-huh.
How about Darjeeling?
Darjeeling, my favorite.
Is it? Where is Darjeeling from?
North of India.
India.
That's right, India. So Assam is from India as well. What about Ceylon?
Mm-hmm.
That is from Sri Lanka. That is actually the name. Ceylon and Sri Lanka are synonymous. It was named Ceylon before it was named Sri Lanka. What do they drink in South America? What kind of tea do they drink there? Anybody ever hear of yerba mate? Mate?
Yeah.
They have what's called a bombilla. Actually, the straw that they drink from is the bombilla, means straw, and they drink from a gourd, which means mate, and it's a very social thing, and they all pass it around and drink it. And they only do it in their homes. They don't do it in restaurants or outside of their homes. So it's kind of a, way to socialize. So that's what they do in South America. What about South Africa or Africa?
Oh, rooibos.
That's right, rooibos. Yeah, that is some of my favorite herbal tea, non-caffeinated tea. So when you're thinking about tea, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it, there's a lot that I never knew that goes into what we take for granted, and the way that we just have it so conveniently in these little tea bags, and just pour or microwave the water. Guilty. However, I know more, and I will do better now. This is a picture, or pictures, a collage of basically a process of how tea is manufactured and how it goes from the tea estates, of which the one that's on the upper left going clockwise, that is a tea estate in Sri Lanka. And you can see that the tea plants are about, chest high, but there's some tea trees that are, old trees that are like 30 feet high, but they cut them now to where they're easier for the pickers to only get the top buds or top leaves. And that's what, if you can imagine, this is just one estate. That's what these master tea blenders and people that source teas from around the world to make blends. If you can imagine all the labor that goes into that cup that you are having an enjoyable moment from, there's a lot that goes into it. So tea is no minor beverage, because the different estates is just like wine. They have different terroirs. Anybody, well, I'm going to have a wine 101 class, by the way, this August. And I'm going to be in Washington State, where I'm from. And, but tea is just like wine in that the environment affects the product. So the amount of rain, the amount of sun, the soil, all kinds of things go into producing that result. In addition to that, the way that it's processed, if you look on the next picture to the right top, you can see that they're doing what's called withering. And that is where, once those baskets are filled for the pickers, they take them back and they work around the clock from that point on. And you can pick new buds every 2 to 3 weeks. So you get new crops every 2 to 3 weeks. And so when that harvest comes, they spread them out on these either bamboo mats on the floor, or this one looks like it's plastic. And they kind of let it dry a little bit and sort of, start withering. Then they will do things like either, see the middle picture where she has, I think that's a nun, and she's got these gloves on, and what she's doing is kind of rotating those leaves around in a walk. So she's actually, kind of cooking those leaves, firing them, so to speak. And then the picture on the left, they're actually rolling, and that's more withering. So when you wither a piece of basil, what happens to the piece of basil? Kind of turns brown, right?
Right.
So that is oxidization. it starts oxidizing. So the more oxidation that the leaf gets, either from, withering up, laying it out a number of times, kind of like hay, how you rotate the hay to dry it, in the summer. You can either do that to the leaves, or you can like hand roll them. Once they're actually withered, you can wither them even further, or you can mechanically roll them. It's fascinating to watch these processes. I saw how it's done, and it's just like, wow, it's very kind of artisan production, small batch. It's really interesting how they do it. And different places all over the world do it totally different than other places. And so that, again, affects the finished product. And that's why there's so many different types of tea out there. And I also learned that just like with wine, you have tea sommeliers, not just wine sommeliers, but there's tea sommeliers. And they look down their nose at people like that don't know anything about tea. Like I was. Because I drink what's called tea dust, which they just look down their nose at, because they prefer loose leaf versus the stuff that's in the tea sachets. And I will get into that as to why. So we'll talk about exactly how to brew, how to put together a really good cup. And it's different for each of these different types of teas. Each product that you're buying should have instructions on the back of the box. Like, for example, this is Twinings. They have instructions at exactly what temperature. They also have the notes of what you're going to be smelling: fragrant, floral, sweet. The color should be golden, honey, orange. This is a jasmine green tea. And now I want you to look at that picture on the bottom right and tell me what you think is on top. What is the white stuff?
Is it a fungus?
Nope. It's jasmine flowers. I was blown away because this is it has been one of my favorites. It's jasmine green tea because of the floral. The scent is amazing. I don't know if you've ever tried this, but I just love jasmine green tea because of that, because I love jasmine flowers. And you can't believe that they do this twice. They pick all these jasmine flowers and they infuse these tea leaves with them twice, not just once. And they take all the first batch out and then they do it again. So you can see it's kind of labor intensive. I don't know exactly how they get all the little white flowers out, but it's amazing what the product is. This kind of just goes through that process again with you, in that the thing is, the green and white teas are the least processed of any of these teas. So the white, all they do is wither it and then dry it. So it's minimally processed. The green tea, you saw kind of the process of the withering, the pan frying with a wok, and then the jasmine flowers are added, or the rolling and shaping, which you also saw. And then the oolong, they roll it in baskets to bruise the leaf edges. So it's kind of in the middle ground between the green tea and the black tea, because they have a short fermentation period, and then they pan fry it, they dry it, and that tea is really good with both sweet and savory dishes. And there's so many different types of oolong, but the oolong from the Fujian province of China is some of the best in the world. And then the black teas, They're what, Earl Grey or Assam or, Darjeeling, say the black teas for Earl Grey. They just add oil of bergamot, which is kind of like an orange that is grown in Italy. And that's what gives that fragrance and the flavor for Earl Grey. So again, that's how all these different varieties are made, just these tea masters. It's amazing the process that they use to put these different blends together and how they process it to create the flavors that they create. And then there's pu'er. Pu'er is even more fermented than that, because you got the black tea, then you got the dark black. The dark tea is pu'er, and you actually, I don't have any of that, but you actually can lose weight. Apparently, it's really good for weight loss. So is green tea, actually. Black tea as well. It just kind of speeds up your metabolism, and it's good for you. It's very good for you. So those are the different colors, and those are the degrees of fermentation the way they're treated for processing that results in the different colors of shades of the finished cup. Any questions on that? So going back to the tea sommelier master tea aficionados, they prefer the loose leaf tea versus tea bags. It's definitely higher quality. You get a longer shelf life, more flavor, stronger aromas. It's good for the environment, and you can get multiple infusions out of it. There's different methods of actually brewing the tea. One is called the Gong Fu method, where they just pour hot water over it and then just like 15, actually probably 5 seconds, and they rinse it out, and it's just to sort of open up the tea leaves. And then they do multiple infusions of water, and each infusion has a different flavor. And in China, that's a really popular way to drink tea. So in the West, most of us have the tea bags. That's speaking for me. But I do have tea leaves, and I do have to say that I do love this company is called Harney and Sons, and this is one of my favorite blends. And their tea sachets are not made of plastic. They're actually, the actual tea bag was invented by an American, and it was made of silk. And I think this is some sort of like fabric, kind of like that. So it is biodegradable versus some of them are plastic. And I don't know if you really want to put that in your teacup. And certainly it does create a lot of waste. But it's certainly, this has loose leaf tea in the sachets, and it is not teeny pieces of it. It's the leaf. So it does expand pretty fully. So it is not necessarily as like tea dust, like you can see in the picture there, which is very low grade and usually just one-time use. So you want to consider that, because the best tea comes in loose leaf. This is a rooibos that I love. It's so good, and it is a scented tea, and it's loose leaf. And they also have teas like this guy. This is an herbal tea. This guy, Stephen Smith, have any of you ever heard of Tazo or Stash teas? Well, this is the guy that created those for Starbucks. And my husband and I went to a really nice hotel. It was in Beaver Creek in Colorado. And in that hotel room, next to the coffee pot, is the tea. And they had this tea, which I always like to try these. I tell you, it's so good. So then I ordered it. And this is really lovely. It says, to create the peaceful sensations of a bursting spring meadow, we started with a bundle of plump, soothing, hand-picked chamomile flowers, then added hyssop, an herb that quietly enhances alertness. And you'll also notice the taste of rose petals, safflower from China, and European sienna and linden flowers. It's like a Renoir you can drink, which is true. It's so good. So teas kind of take you places and provide these meditative moments that you can use to get in touch with your, guiding inner voice. So there also are these kinds of teas, which are blossoming teas, and they unfold into these beautiful blossoms. This is an oolong flower tea, and in China, these people actually sew these things together. They have all kinds of beautiful, beautiful patterns that you pour water over these things, and they make all these colors, and they just like create this thing that grows and grows, and it's really interesting. So that's kind of a fun one. So there's all kinds. I have orange pekoe, I have Assam, I have Earl Grey, of course. That's one of my favorites. Since I lived in England, I was stationed over there for 2 years, and I love Earl Grey. So how do you prepare it? Once you know, maybe what you want to buy, and again, you're going to have to experiment with these and see which ones you like best, because first of all, I know that I never put the right amount of, or the right temperature half the time as a thought process of brewing these things. Because first of all, I never had the technology, which I do now. This is a Chefman water kettle, and it's programmable, and you can set it for, say, a green tea, which brews best at 175 to 185. You can click the temperature and it will shut off at that temperature. And so that makes it a no-brainer. Versus a black tea, you want to set it for 212. And, there's various in-betweens on that. So you kind of got to experiment with making the perfect cup at the right temperature. And that's a huge part of it, is making sure you're brewing it at the right temperature. So you always start with filling it up with fresh cold water, because you want, I don't know if you've ever had rebrewed water and put that on your tea, but all the oxygen is out of it. You want fresh cold water that's oxygenated, because that's going to make the best cup of tea. And you want to use a stainless steel pot. Again, the best temperature for each tea type. And then this is my grandmother's teapot. Her name was Violet. This is 24 karat gold. I'm so happy to share it with you, because it's been up on display for, till now. So another fun thing about these teas is that you get to use all the coolest things that you own. And I want to point out that tea kettle that the Dowager Countess of Grantham, Maggie Smith. How many of you are Downton Abbey fans? I love Downton Abbey. It's so fun. Anyway, since I lived in England and my family is English, my grandfather was born in London, I really got into the British shows when I was over in the UK and since I've been back. But anyways, in Texas, my friend Paula got me into junking, and I'm in Florida right now. And I was coming down back to my house, and I saw this sign that said estate sale. And I just my car went on a 90-degree right angle turn, and I just went with it. So And it took me to this place where I got all these cool things for like $2. And it was like this. And it's Bristol silver. And then I got, all of these little things, like this beautiful water pitcher. That was $7. You can't buy that for that price at Walmart. I got the tea, milk and saucer. I mean, the creamer and the sugar. And then I got this for like $2. All of those, and they were black. They were all black. Of course, I had to polish them. So it took a little bit of elbow grease, but it was fun. So you don't have to spend a lot of money to get this stuff, but anyways, when you're getting your teapot ready, you want to pour some of the hot water or tap water to warm up your pot before you pour in that boiling water. So don't pour in like the 212 degree water. Just use it when it's like 140 or something like that, because this is really delicate and you certainly don't want to crack your grandmother's china. And then you just swish it around and warm up the pot and then pour it out. And that gets the pot ready. Then you add 1 heaping teaspoon of loose leaf tea for the pot, and then for everybody else that's at your tea party. And then pour in the hot water over the tea leaves. And then you would use a strainer. And, if you don't have the fancy kind, you could just buy this at H-E-B. That's what I do for my, myself in the morning. But I actually got these really cool strainers off Amazon that I'm using tomorrow, and I'll show you those when we go look at the tablescape. So once you've infused the tea leaves for the appropriate amount of time, you want to pour it and not leave, the tea like stewing in there. I'm guilty of that. I really like to stew my tea. I was under the impression that I was getting my money's worth, but really sometimes like it makes it bitter. This and the black teas, they can become bitter if you leave them in the hot water for too long. And then these come in really handy. These are tea cozies. These are 2 different ones that one of the friends that's coming tomorrow let me borrow. This is from England. I don't know if you can see the cat in there. There's a cat by the door. And they keep it warm for probably about, at least a half hour, which is definitely helpful. And so when you're pouring your tea, once it's infused, you would ask the person if they want it strong, which is about 3/4 cup. If you're the hostess, you would pour it to about 3/4 cup if they want it strong, and then they can add more water or milk, or if it's a tea that you don't add milk to, like a green tea, then they could add lemon or ginger or something like that. But if they want it to add more milk to, you could just a little less than 3/4 full, so that they could dilute it with water or milk. Like if it's a black tea, then a lot of times you add milk to that. And then you can see Maggie Smith is doing it the right way. She's warming her pot up first. And she did a lot of business over tea parties. She influenced a lot of people around the tea table. And this is an example of that little tea cozy on the table there. And that is Fran, who is the owner of that. And the tea caddy, I don't know if you can see right behind me, but that's the same tea caddy. That is hers that I borrowed. I have a different one, but I kind of like the fact that, you can remove the plates and put them in the dishwasher, which is nice. So a lot of times you can find those if you're going to estate sales or thrift stores or something like that. So, this guy, James Norwood Pratt, is a very prominent in the world of tea. And it is true, I think, that afternoon tea calls for a certain amount of ceremony because it's a very social event. It's kind of like a celebration and it calls for manners. So it does cause people to be on their best behavior and be more refined. And so let's take a look at etiquette now. So Maggie Smith, like I said, she used to like to invite people over for tea, but she definitely had an agenda, which she executed very well, I would say, if you watch Downton Abbey. And so this is an example of, the highest level of etiquette would be Edwardian England and Queen Victoria's time. And the reason that we have tea the way we have it is because of this woman here. This is Anna, the 7th Duchess of Bedford. And she found that she would get really peckish around 4 o'clock because in those days, in Queen Victoria, she was a lady in waiting to Queen Victoria. So there was only 2 meals served. One was breakfast, and then they didn't eat dinner until like around 8 at night. And so that's a long time to go without food. So she asked one time, she got up the nerve to request tea alongside of some little snacks like tea sandwiches and sweets or something to be brought to her room. And so that kind of started, she's the one that actually started in the West, the tradition of tea, because when she was then accustomed to doing that, she started inviting her friends over at that hour. And then when she was invited to her friends' castles or, manor houses, she would bring along her silver tea service because she didn't want to leave home without it. So the trend caught on from there. And thanks to her, we enjoyed that through probably the 50s, but it's certainly sloughed off for a while, and now it's picking back up as far as being a really great thing to revitalize and a tradition that, we definitely want to keep intact. So what you want to do when you're hosting, or if you're going to a tea, you take your cues from the host or hostess. And you are on your, you take your cues from them, and hopefully, whatever they do, that's a standard. But as far as, best behavior, it comes down to the same things that you hopefully ask your kids to do at home. Don't put your elbows on the table. Don't make loud noises while you're chewing your food. Things like that. Maintain a civilized comportment. Sit up straight. Don't slouch, that kind of thing. And as far as the cup, is it pinkies out or pinkies down?
Down.
I didn't know that until I saw a lot of different, pictures of Americans mostly with pinkies out, because Americans really don't know. And the British make fun of us when we go to the Ritz and we do that. I mean, I don't know if you know that, but they know who's American. So the proper tea cup grip is with the thumb and index finger, on the handle, and then the other fingers below that supporting the teacup, like that. And if you leave the table, you always take your saucer with you. And the reason the pinkies were out is because in China, where these tea dishes used to come from, along with the tea, to Portugal, London, and the big major world centers back then, they didn't have handles. And so your pinky would be like this, extended, until the handle was put on the cup, because it just made holding very boiling hot cup of tea easier with a handle. That's why the saucer was invented, but then the handle was invented to assist that. That's kind of where it came from. And then the spoon goes in back parallel to the handle when you're not using it. And another faux pas on my part, don't lick your spoon after you stir it. It's not cool in England anyway. So I want to show you another picture right here. There's a whole bunch more lists of etiquette. Don't place tea bags on the saucer, place them on the discard plate. Do you take small bites of food? Don't make a sandwich out of your scone. Break the scone into small pieces. Don't try and stuff finger sandwiches in one bite into your mouth. Keep elbows, purses, phones off the table. This is an important one. Do you add milk before or after the tea has been added? Well, I saw a whole lot of different opinions on this, but the consensus is that the milk is added after the tea because in the old days, when the cups were cheaper, sometimes the milk was added first to keep the cup from cracking, just so that it would kind of mellow the temperature. But the milk is added after the tea has been added because you want to basically determine the strength you want your tea at. And you do that by tasting or looking at the tea and determining that first. And you also add the sugar next so it dissolves, then the milk. Because your sugar may not dissolve if you add the milk first. And then to stir, do you go like this? No, you don't go in a circle. You go from 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock. That's the correct way. And you don't make as little noise as possible. No one likes those who attract attention to themselves when they stir. So, and then, keep, after you've stirred it, you don't drink from the teacup with the spoon in it. You put it back on the saucer. And then you also take small sips of tea. You let the tea cool by itself. You don't blow on it. And you don't swish it in your mouth. And you'll only use milk and sugar for black tea. And then you do want to eat with your fingers. So I want you to take a look at that picture and see if you can see any faux pas in there. I'll be right back. I'm in a Zoom class. I can't talk right now. I'm on the internet with people. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. All right. So anybody see anything that might be considered a faux pas?
Cell phone on the table. Yeah. Elbow on the table.
Yeah.
Any pinkies out?
I think the lady in black kind of has her pinky out, as opposed to the lady in the mauve whatever jacket.
Good. Very good. So if you're the hostess, of course, you're going to be very gracious and not point those faux pas out. But just so you know, and we know.
Me, I mean, is there a lot of clutter on this table for a tea?
Personally, it's got a lot of things going on. there's a lot of Downton Abbey pictures. This is a Downton Abbey Tea Party theme. So I think that what you're seeing there is a lot of pictures of, different characters in the show on the table. And there are quite a few people at that table. So yeah, it's pretty crowded.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's cozy.
I don't think tea is the only drink there either.
Oh, no, it's not. It's what you would call a full tea, royal tea, with champagne. So let's talk about tablescapes. You can see the tea caddy, like I said, behind me. You always start with the scones first. Do you say scone or scone? Some say scone, but if you can remember the word gone, scone rhymes with gone. So that's how they say it in Europe. So you always start with a tea sandwich first, which is to blunt your appetite before you get to the sweets and the scones. The scones are next. You kind of go up the tier. So everything is served at once. So all 3 courses, you have 3 courses there. You could have 4 with, if you brought a savory, like say mini quiches, blinis, crostinis, just other savory dishes. You could have a different serving platter, or you could add them all onto that platter because there's plenty of room on that bottom tier. If you notice though, the sandwiches are really dainty. They're cut in triangles. Finger sandwiches should be small bites. They should be no more than like 3 bites. So they shouldn't be like with huge bread, things that are hard to chew, big pieces of chicken in it or something like that. So they're very dainty, and you can do all kinds of things with finger sandwiches. Amazing how these places that you can have high tea, how they present it. It's just incredibly beautiful. So going up the tier, the next course is your scone with clotted cream, jam, fresh fruit. And you notice that the fresh fruit really adds to the presentation of that tea caddy. It makes it look a lot prettier. Plus, it's healthy, and it's good for you. So that's one way to embellish whatever serving platters you're using, and it doesn't have to be a tea caddy. It can be whatever. And you can also stack different things on, cake stands. You can stack cake stands and make your own little caddy or tablescape that way. Or you could do what you can see on the right. You have your savory course on the plate with all the little finger sandwiches and savory dishes. And then on the left of the plate, you've got the scones course, and that's got the clotted cream, the lemon curd, and strawberry jam. And then you've got the sweets course on the square plate. And so it's got all 3 courses, but it's just laid out differently. And you see, you've got, each person has a different pot of tea according to whatever choice they have made that they enjoy. And with that pot of tea, you can see that the teacups have the teaspoons that are parallel to the handle. Everything's parallel. You can see on the jams and cream, etc. The teapots are parallel. Everything's parallel. And there's also these little things that are beautiful little tea strainers right in front of the cups. So that is loose leaf tea. And so that's another way of doing it. All right, so for my tea, let's just go back for a second. I want to show you. They don't show the napkins here, but my tea, this is what I'm doing for the napkins. I'm making a rose out of it. And to do that, you start with a triangle and you just roll it up to about that far. And it's got to be, kind of a stiff starched napkin. So you roll it up like this, then you start rolling one end, and you just go to roll it kind of tightly till it looks like this. See what I'm doing? And you keep going all the way. And then this little piece you will tuck in right here. Like that. And that gives you your rose. And then you've got, this is a little longer, so I'm going to work with this. And then you just bring it down like this, the little leaves. And there's your rose.
Oh, neat.
And then you just put that on your plate. Okay, so some of the other things.
Cindy,
Yeah.
I have a question. So, like, what would be the current day dress code? Which, I mean, it appears that many of the women still wear hats, but is there a code?
Yeah, it's really just smart casual. You can even, it depends on the place that you're going to. I mean, Lucy's at Stow on the Wold in the Cotswolds is certainly, more relaxed and not as expensive or high class as the Ritz. But, a lot of people wear really smart casual clothes, and that's fine. You don't have to wear hats, but it's personal preference, really. And I don't think, even if you have really nice jeans, that's probably acceptable in certain places as well. So it just depends what the theme is and where you're going. And, it's kind of up to if you're the hostess, then you decide what the dress is. It's all up to you if you want to do it. It's a lot of fun to make a different theme. This is a Downton Abbey theme, and you can see the menu, the tea menu. It has peach bellinis, that was what you saw on the table, and English black tea, because you want to put the tea, it's about the tea, so you do want to list the tea if you know what it is, or if you just want to say a selection, that's fine too. And then each of the finger sandwiches and the scones and the sweets. So my menu that I'm going to be making with you, I'm going to show you how to make these lemon mousse cups. Anybody, you all got the recipes, right? So I do not have time to make all those recipes in this class. So I'm going to just show you a few of them, like the lemon mousse cups, and how to actually do the finger sandwiches, as well as I've already made the scones and they've rested. So it's just a matter of just crumbing the flour and all the ingredients for them together to make a fine crumb, and then adding the cream and the egg and mixing it all together. Don't over mix it. That's the whole point of that. And then I'll show you what the result looks like in a minute. Some of the other ideas, though, that I want to go into before we go into this, and just hold your questions for a minute. These are cookies that I made, by the way. And I want to show you a couple of other ideas. So this is, I think I showed you the menu that's a nice touch, to have a menu. And this is just a template off of Microsoft. And I have different courses that are starting with the teas. I put the date, then I go into the finger sandwiches, then I go into the scones, and then the sweets. So you can do that. I also have these little things as favors, which I made from, if you are interested in doing this, you can just email me, Cindy at Cindy's Couture Kitchen, and I can send you the link to these little things. That's so cute. And I just printed them out, and I put my favorite tea, this Harney and Sons Paris blend, inside this so that people can take them home as a little favor reminder of the fun time that we spent together. And I also have the same little template comes with these little name cards that you can put around each place setting. And then because I have lots of classes this week, and I certainly cannot eat all of this food, I have, and you probably want to have little containers, something like Chinese, boxes or some sort of container that people can take some of the things that they had from the tea. If you have leftovers that you don't want to, be eating like sweets for the rest of the week or month. So those are some ideas. Any questions on those things? I just want to share with you this Paris tea blend, briskness. I'm going to unpin pin my, I'm going to stop sharing this actually and pin I guess I am pinned now. Everybody can see me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Full screen, right? So this is Harney and Sons Paris tea blend, briskness, body, aroma. All of these things are evaluated. It discusses the blend Paris, that it comes from 3 teas, and the color of the liqueur and the aroma, caffeine level, body, flavors, brewing time and brewing temperature. So it gives you, exactly, this was in your handout. So, that gives you exactly an idea of what to pair it with. And that's, again, when you make a menu, you want to think about pairings. So any other questions before we go? I'm going to show you the tablescape that I made. Oh, the other consideration is flowers. And I'll show you what I set up. Okay, so this is my dining room. And this is what I got for, I think that was $7. This coffee or tea pot, silver. Again, it was black, but I'm just using it as a vase because sometimes silver imparts kind of a metal taste, which I don't really like. So this is my grandmother's serving platter, Lennox, and I've got a little thing for the finger sandwiches, or I could savory items, or I could put it on the bottom tier of this caddy. So this is another one. And then this is to rest your teapot. I've got spoons for the lemon mousse cups. And then this is the table. So you can see some of the things that I have here, the little favors, the spoons that are parallel, the plates inside the plate. So the plates are small, they're not large. And then you have the discard plate. You have different kinds of sugars. Those are lavender, vanilla sugar cubes, and tea candies from Germany. And then I have the roses. And this is the tea. So that's the table setting, which, again, if you want to elevate it to a higher level, then you want to just
And Cindy, besides the sugar cubes, do you also offer them like honey and monk fruit or different various sweeteners?
It just depends if you want to. If you want to, you can. But yeah, monk fruit is very sweet. And yeah, you can, if you have herbal teas, you can have honey out. Sure. Any other questions? Good questions. I like questions. All right, so I'm going to do the finger sandwiches first, and these are so good. These are the chicken finger sandwiches. Really thin bread. Can you see that? So for this recipe, you have cooked chicken breasts, roughly chopped, and then I added all of the ingredients like the celery, red onion. I chopped the walnuts and I chopped the celery, and then I added all that stuff to actually the chicken first to a food processor because I wanted the chicken really, really finely chopped. And so what I got was this, and it's pretty finely chopped. I don't know if you can see that. So that's because, again, these things are delicate. And so you don't want to make it difficult for people to eat. You want to make it really easy. Everything is refined. So you put the recipe says 1/4 cup, and I think that might have been a mistake on my part because really what you're wanting to do is spread it about 1/4 of an inch thick. So it's about 2 heaping tablespoons, I'd say, maybe a little more. So anyways, just depending on your bread size, it could be 1/4 of an inch thick if you got a lot of bread, but these are pretty small loaves. And so you just spread it to the edge. And then, I spread both sides with softened butter. It's really soft, so you don't tear the bread. And then you just top it and put it in the refrigerator to chill for at least 30 minutes at least. You don't want to cut the crust off until you chill the bread. And the reason you butter both sides is to make it stick together. And that's that. But you could also put like watercress, you could put microgreens on it. It's up to you. And then you top it. And then voila, that one's done. But it has to go in their fridge. Like these have been in the fridge. So what I'm going to do is cut it. And it cuts so much easier once it's been in the fridge chilling. So you just simply cut off the ends. And so that's going to leave you with about, my fingers are about an inch. And so about 2 fingers width. Mine are kind of smaller than most people's. So you're going to get 2 sandwiches out of this. Sometimes, people, you've seen it in triangles, sometimes squares, but if it's squares, the bread would be bigger. I like these for the rectangles because this size of bread is perfect for rectangles. And so that's it. And then most of the time people serve them with the filling up so that people can see. So it looks really neat when these things have the crusts trimmed off. And it just looks so much more special, right? Don't you think? So that's that. And you could also make finger sandwiches that are spirals. You could toast them in muffin cups to make little baskets. What other ways have you seen finger sandwiches served? Anybody? How many of you just seen them that way? Have you seen triangles or what else? Or what else do you do? Do you do pinwheels?
I think I've seen the triangles.
Mm-hmm. And the filling was filling side up, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now I'm going to show you the scones. I'm going to put this back in the fridge though, so it can stay cold. Any questions on the finger sandwiches? I use, these sandwiches are super good. I love this recipe because this is one of my favorite things, Major Gray's chutney. Have any of you ever had this?
No.
No? No one? No one has ever had that? Oh, serious? It's amazing. Wow. I don't believe it. You guys have never had that. Oh, you definitely must try it.
Can you get that at HEB?
Oh yeah. It's in the international aisle, I'm sure. It's Indian food section, you know. So what I'm gonna do here, this is the remainder of the scones that I cut out using just a fluted little cookie cutter. So you can see how tiny they are. So you can do a variety like these. I would serve with this cranberry orange cardamom scone. I would serve just a plain, you know, simple, like Queen Elizabeth's favorite is a simple cream scone. Favorite is it just plain with cream in it. And then I would just brush the top with a little bit of cream, not the sides, because you want it to puff up. So you don't want to do it on the sides. You just want it on the top. And that's going to make it really pretty and shiny. Oops, I just did what I told you not to do. But shh, don't tell anybody. And then you dust it with a little bit of turbinado sugar. And that's the scones. And you put them in for like 15 minutes at 425. Okay? Questions on that? No? The secret to them, I mean, you could see that they were full of butter that I did not mix in on purpose, just like a pie crust. You don't want to over-mix because then you ruin the crumb of it and it becomes too glutinous. Okay, so that's that. And now, last thing I want to show you is the lemon mousse dessert cups. All right, so I'm going to put these back. So the lemon mousse dessert cups are super fun and super easy. So to do those, you will need lemon curd, which you can either buy or make, maybe the recipe. And this is what they look like. Okay, so to make them, you need, first of all, the graham cracker crust and a muddler or a shot glass. And you put a teaspoon, and I got these at the dollar store, and they're really cute for parties. So you just put a tablespoon into the bottom of each of your shot glass or your dessert cup glasses, and then you tamp them down with a muddler or a shot glass. And then you add your lemon mousse to that. Your lemon, either cream cheese or mascarpone cheese, it's up to you. Which you can mix them. If you don't have one or run out of the other, you can mix them. So I put this in a piping bag with a star tip. And then all you do is you just pipe the first layer. And then second layer is some lemon curd. And I just, pipe some of that in. I just I don't have a tip in the bottom of this. It's just a piping bag that I cut the tip off. And then I just squeeze some lemon curd in there. For that layer. And then I put some blueberries on top of that. So these are super easy and so good and really fun. Fun food. Food should be fun, I think. And then another layer of the lemon cream or mascarpone cheese on top of that. And then one last thing is a layer of whipped cream, just to garnish it. And then on top of that, you can either actually to garnish it, you can add some more, either some more graham cracker crumb. You can add mint leaf. You can add blueberries. This has been fun for me. I hope it's been fun for you. And I hope you guys have a lot of celebrations in your life in the future. Thanks for joining me.